You have probably already watched a video or two about foods that quietly work against your health. But stick with me for the next few minutes, because there are 3 foods sitting in most kitchens right now that get sold to you as smart, healthy choices, and almost nobody explains what they are actually doing inside your body once you swallow them. I am Dr. Christopher, and today we are going to walk through 3 of these foods together. Plain and simple, no confusing medical talk, just what you need to know and what you can do about it. 2 of these 3 are things you have probably been told to feel good about eating. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why they deserve a second look, and you will have simple, doable swaps you can start using this week. So let's get into it. The first one is agave nectar. If you have ever walked down the health food aisle, you have probably seen it sitting proudly right next to the raw honey in a nice glass bottle looking wholesome and natural. Here is the problem. Agave nectar is mostly fructose, somewhere in the range of 80 to 90%, which is a much higher concentration than you would find in regular table sugar or even in high fructose corn syrup. Now, here is where it gets interesting. Your body does not handle fructose the same way it handles regular sugar or glucose. Almost every cell in your body can use glucose for energy pretty easily. Fructose is different. Your liver is really the only organ built to process it in any meaningful amount. So when you pour a big spoonful of agave into your morning coffee or smoothie, thinking you are doing something healthy, you are actually sending a concentrated dose of fructose straight to your liver, and your liver has to treat it almost like it treats alcohol, breaking it down and converting a good portion of it into fat. Over time, this can contribute to something called fatty liver, and it can quietly push your body toward insulin resistance, which is often an early step on the road to blood sugar problems. Marketing agave as low glycemic is technically true, and that is exactly why it is so misleading, because the glycemic index only measures how fast something raises your blood sugar right after eating it. It does not measure what is happening behind the scenes in your liver. So agave can look perfectly innocent on paper while still contributing to insulin resistance and fat buildup in the liver over time, just through a different pathway. There is also a connection between high fructose intake and higher uric acid levels in the body, which matters a lot if you or someone in your family struggles with gout, because a flare-up can be triggered by exactly this kind of sugar load. So is agave basically the same as honey? Not really. Honey is far less processed and contains a mix of natural compounds along with its sugars. Agave nectar, on the other hand, typically goes through significant heat processing to get that smooth, neutral taste. And by the time it reaches the bottle, it can actually carry more calories per serving than plain table sugar. The simple fix here is easier than you might think. If you enjoy a little natural sweetness, small amounts of raw honey or just a bit of real maple syrup used sparingly are generally a gentler choice for your liver than agave, simply because they are not as concentrated in fructose. And the one coming up next might surprise you even more, because it is something almost every doctor's office in the country has quietly recommended for years. Let's talk about fruit juice, especially the kind labeled no sugar added, freshly squeezed, 100% juice. Sounds perfectly innocent, right? Here is the problem. When you take the juice out of an orange or a grape, you strip away the fiber that used to slow down how quickly that natural sugar hits your bloodstream. Without that fiber acting like a brake pedal, the sugar in juice, which again is largely fructose, gets absorbed fast, and a lot of it heads straight to your liver, similar to what we just talked about with agave. What is interesting is that people tend to sip soda slowly over 20 or 30 minutes, but juice gets guzzled down in just a couple of minutes, which means an even faster sugar load hits your system all at once. Ounce for ounce, some fruit juices actually carry a comparable and sometimes even higher fructose content than a can of soda, which catches most people completely off guard because juice has that healthy halo around it, wrapped in a carton with a picture of sunshine and oranges on it. This matters even more if you have grandchildren, because so many parents hand their kids a juice box thinking it is a smart, healthy alternative to soda, when in terms of what it is doing to blood sugar, it can behave in a surprisingly similar way. The fix here is simple and satisfying. Whenever you can, reach for the whole piece of fruit instead of the juice. An actual orange, with all its fiber intact, takes longer to eat, fills you up more, and releases its natural sugar into your body at a much gentler pace. If you truly love the taste of juice, try cutting it with sparkling water so you get the flavor with a fraction of the sugar load. Now, here comes the one that might be the hardest to hear, because this next food has had the government's blessing for decades. It has been sitting at the center of the food pyramid you probably grew up learning about, and there is a good chance your own doctor has recommended it to you. I am talking about whole wheat bread. I know, whole wheat is supposed to be the good version, the heart-healthy choice compared to white bread. And it is true that whole wheat does offer some fiber and nutrients that white bread lacks. But here is what almost nobody explains to you. Bread, even whole wheat bread, is essentially a long chain of glucose molecules bound together. And that chain can break apart in your digestive system surprisingly fast, releasing a rush of sugar into your bloodstream. In fact, some nutrition experts point out that a couple of slices of whole wheat bread can raise your blood sugar just as quickly, and sometimes even faster, than you might expect from a straightforward sugary snack, simply because of how quickly that starch converts. On top of that, whole wheat contains something called phytic acid, which can bind to important minerals like zinc, magnesium, and calcium, making it a little harder for your body to absorb them fully. And if you take a moment to actually read the ingredient label on most store-bought whole wheat bread, you will often find a long list of extras beyond just whole wheat flour. Things like added sugar, dough conditioners, preservatives, and other ingredients that have nothing to do with traditional bread making. This is where it gets interesting, though, because you do not have to give up bread completely. The fix is about being selective. Look for bread made with sprouted grains, or genuinely dense, seeded whole grain loaves with very few ingredients. Ideally, something you could pronounce every item on the label. Even better, pairing any bread with a source of protein or healthy fat, like a bit of avocado or a hard-boiled egg, can help slow down how quickly that sugar hits your bloodstream. And here is a piece of value nobody talks about that ties all three of these together. One of the most overlooked ways to protect yourself from the effects of extra fructose and quick sugar spikes is making sure you are getting enough omega-3 fats in your diet, the kind found in fatty fish like salmon or sardines, or in a quality fish oil supplement. There is ongoing research suggesting that these healthy fats may help support liver function and counterbalance some of the metabolic stress that comes from excess fructose, which makes a couple of servings of fatty fish each week a genuinely smart addition if you are working on cleaning up your diet in your 50s, 60s, or 70s. All right, now before we get to the last big takeaway, let's take a quick breather, because I promise you do not need to feel guilty if you have been enjoying any of these foods. Myself included, I have absolutely had a slice of toast with my coffee more mornings than I would like to admit, and none of us are aiming for perfection here, just a little more awareness. If any of this caught you a bit off guard, go ahead and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this kind of honest health information reach more people who need to hear it, instead of the usual food marketing noise. Now, let's bring this all together. The three foods we covered today, agave nectar, fruit juice, and whole wheat bread, all share one sneaky trait in common. They are marketed with a health halo that does not always match what is happening once they are inside your body, particularly for your liver and your blood sugar. The good news is that none of this requires drastic changes. Small, realistic swaps, choosing the whole fruit over the juice, using natural sweeteners sparingly, picking dense whole grain bread with a short ingredient list, and adding a bit more omega-3 into your week can make a real difference over time. And here is something worth remembering. Your body has an incredible ability to bounce back once you give it the right support, no matter what decade of life you are in. I always say that getting healthier later in life is a little like tending a garden you have neglected for a while. It is never too late to pull a few weeds and start watering it again. And honestly, that is a lot more encouraging than most of the doom and gloom you hear about aging and food. If this video gave you something useful to think about, go ahead and subscribe, because we cover topics exactly like this every single week. Simple, honest, and made for real people, not headlines. Drop a comment below and let me know which food surprised you the most today, or what topic you would like us to break down next, whether that is sleep, joint pain, energy levels, or anything else that has been on your mind. And it is always worth doing a little of your own reading on these topics too, so you feel confident in the choices you are making. One last thing before you go. Everything we talked about today is general health information, meant to help you understand your food a little better. It is not personalized medical advice, so please talk with your own doctor about what makes the most sense for your specific health situation. Before you go, I want to leave you with one more piece of the puzzle, something that ties everything we just talked about into a single habit you can start tonight. A lot of the trouble with these three foods is not just what is in them, it is how fast we tend to eat them. And there is a very simple trick that can soften the impact of almost any carbohydrate, whether it is a slice of bread, a glass of juice, or a sweetened coffee. It is called sequencing your meal, and it just means eating your protein and vegetables first, and saving the bread, the fruit, or anything starchy for last. When you do this, the fiber and protein you ate first act almost like a slow-release coating in your stomach, which means the sugar and starch that come afterward hit your bloodstream more gradually instead of all at once. Some simple observational research on meal order has found that people who eat this way tend to see noticeably calmer blood sugar responses after eating, even when the total meal stays exactly the same. This is a completely free change. It costs you nothing, and it works whether you are having toast in the morning or pasta at dinner. Another small but powerful habit is paying attention to temperature and ripeness with fruit. A slightly underripe banana or apple actually contains more resistant starch, which digests more slowly and has less of an impact on blood sugar than the same fruit left to get very ripe and soft. It sounds like a small detail, but little choices like this add up over weeks and months. And one more thing worth mentioning, because I get asked about this often. None of what we covered today means you need to fear carbohydrates altogether. Vegetables, legumes, and whole fruits in their natural form are still wonderful sources of energy and nutrients at any age. The real issue is the small handful of processed or concentrated versions that get dressed up in health food packaging while behaving very differently once they are inside your body. Learning to spot the difference is really the whole goal here, not cutting out entire food groups out of fear. So, to bring it all together, watch out for agave nectar hiding behind that health food label. Be mindful of how much fruit juice makes its way into your week. Choose your bread carefully and pair it with protein. Add a little more omega-3 into your meals. And try eating your starches last in a meal instead of first. These are small, manageable shifts, not an overwhelming diet overhaul. And that is exactly why they tend to stick. I always say that getting healthier later in life is a little like tending a garden you have neglected for a while. It is never too late to pull a few weeds and start watering it again. And honestly, that is a lot more encouraging than most of the doom and gloom you hear about aging and food. If this video gave you something useful to think about, go ahead and subscribe, because we cover topics exactly like this every single week. Simple, honest, and made for real people, not headlines. Drop a comment below and let me know which food surprised you the most today, or what topic you would like us to break down next, whether that is sleep, joint pain, energy levels, or anything else that has been on your mind. And it is always worth doing a little of your own reading on these topics too, so you feel confident in the choices you are making. One last thing before you go. Everything we talked about today is general health information, meant to help you understand your food a little better. It is not personalized medical advice, so please talk with your own doctor about what makes the most sense for your specific health situation. Thanks for spending this time with me, and I will see you in the next one.